You are listening to the Beltway Wars Invitational Podcast, hosted by Adam Jackson and Patrick Wilton. Enjoy the show.
And welcome back to the Beltway Wars Invitational Podcast Show with your hosts, Adam Jackson and Patrick Wilton. As always, going over Week 1 of the fantasy football season. Very exciting week. Very, up and down kind of week. We had some pretty low scores, some kind of high scores. Patrick, I always ask you this, and you're never prepared, because I never get you prepared for this in the pre-show. But anything interesting from Week 1? Were you excited that football was finally back? Were you excited to watch your fantasy football team score the least amount of points this week? How was your feelings?
No, that wasn't very exciting at all. Great to have football back, but kind of that age-old feeling a year in and year out of just kind of having all that optimism of a brand new season just kind of like peter away throughout the day. Like nobody did anything on my squad, and it was just kind of lackluster. And so, kind of off to a whimper here to begin the season. But that's why there's 17 weeks, or I guess 14 in our case, in the regular season. Still a lot of football left to be played, but definitely nice to have it back. I was, successful in my other leagues. I don't know about you, Adam.
I was not.
You were not at all? Okay.
No. Well, I got the trifecta of the Ravens losing and both my fantasy teams losing, which is the worst type of week you can have.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I found myself, watching Red Zone like always, checking my phone, saying like, when's my people going to start scoring points? I just had to stop because I was just on my phone way too much. But that is the magic of fantasy football, and we are glad to be back with all of you. We're going to do this a little different just for Week 1. Of course, we're going to go over our matchups, individual matchups, and everything like that. But Pat would like to start us off with some weekly report that we have here provided by Sleeper. So just go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, well, we've got the best manager this week, starting with the best manager. And it was Brian Morgan, according to Sleeper, because they set a lineup that was 100%, basically 100% through the rounding decimal of 88.54 points. He got closest to his optimal lineup, which isn't saying a lot if your optimal lineup is 88.54. Okay, fine, but I guess a good job of picking from a bunch of bad options in Week 1, Brian. Not to make too much fun of Brian, I am the worst manager of the week, as evidenced by my low score of 81.52. The worst lineup scored 70% of my perfect possible lineup. So a lot of decision-making issues for my team. We did have the biggest blowout featuring the two highest scoring teams on the week. Alex took down Charlie by a margin of 23.3%. So big score for Alex to begin the season. Second biggest score for Charlie, but still getting the tough loss. And then the narrowest victory that we had, Tom taking out the best manager, Brian, 94.22 to 88.14 by an 8% margin. So a narrow victory for Tom. My opponent in Week 2, that'll be Tom. We did have the highest score, of course, mentioned Alex. Very impressive performance for the Owings Ozempic. Is it not Owings Mills Ozempic?
Yes, it's Owings Mills Ozempic.
Oh, it is. Oh, it's okay. It's like abbreviation. Okay, the Owings Mills Ozempic 153.86. That is really impressive in what I thought, Adam, was a really low-scoring week for the NFL and just a bunch of bad football. I mentioned my lowest scoring week, 81.52.
And can I just say, we're all very excited to see what you have in store for us as your punishment for the week.
It doesn't sound like really people are too into punishments this year. No one really could make any ideas or have any thoughts about it. So I don't know. I
Okay,
think
so we're gonna do a poll. Like the podcast when it comes out. If you want to see Patrick do a punishment this year, or for this week
no,
rather,
we don't need a poll.
just go ahead and like it in the time.
We'll get around to
Like the YouTube thing.
busy guy.
If we get a majority, then we'll really peer pressure him into doing that. You're busy. You're a dink.
But anyway, we did have some really notable players that I'm sure we'll touch on. We had the quarterback of the week. That would be Josh Allen, unfortunately, for most of us.
You just skipped over below.
I guess for Alex.
Wait a minute. You just skipped over overachiever and underachiever.
I mean, it was kind of the same. It was the highest score and the overachiever were the same, and the lowest score and the below expectations were the same.
All right.
You know?
All right, go ahead.
We don't have time for all of it. But no, we had Alex with both Josh Allen and Derrick Henry, the running back of the week and the QB of the week. That is a huge factor in running the point total up. The rest of the kind of player awards got spread out. Wide receiver of the week, Zay Flowers. Charlie with Zay Flowers there. A high draft pick that maybe a lot of us thought maybe was a little bit too high. He turns out to have a 24.5-point day. Yeah. Tight end of the week, Mike Brock Bowers. Hopefully he's okay. It sounds like he is, according to him, from his knee injury suffered in that game. Kicker of the week, Cam Little for Scott with 16.5. Defense of the week, the Denver Broncos. That was the first defense off the board in the draft. 18 points for Dustin. And then we had a bunch of bench warmers. Justin Fields on the bench for me with a 29.5-point day. Travis Etienne for you on the bench with a 17.1-point day.
Yeah.
Keon Coleman for my squad, 21.2. And Dalton Kincaid, 12.8. So we had some bench warmers this week.
That is very funny. Me and Pat did not go over this beforehand, so that's very funny that we both had the bench warmer and the sweeping that category for all the positions there. Very funny. But yeah, very interesting storylines in here. We'll get into a lot of these players more as we go into the individual matchups themselves. So with that, let's go to our first matchup, and that would be our high scorer of the week. That'd be Alex with the Owings Mills Ozempic, 153.86 to 124.76 for the Reisterstown Rockets, the defending champions. Josh Allen, high QB scorer of the week, just absolutely torches the Ravens on the ground, through the air, any way you could do it, 38 points. Derrick Henry completely picked up from where he left off last year. 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did lose that costly fumble at the end of that game. Swift with 17 carries, 53 yards. Also catches the ball a little bit, 3 for 5, 12 yards for 8 points. Marvin Harrison gets on the board with a touchdown, 5 for 6, 71, and a score. Terry McLaurin, quiet day, 2 for 4, 27 yards for 3.7 points. Jared Jeudy, 5 for 8, 66 with Joe Flacco at the helm, 9.10 points. Tyler Kraft scores a touchdown in this one, but kind of little involvement. 2 for 4, 16 yards. Mbuka, I forget what his first name is. Emek. I'm gonna struggle all year with names. I'm just letting you know. There's so many bizarro names. But Emeka Ibuka scores 4 for 6, 67 yards and 2 touchdowns from Baker Mayfield. Dicker, the kicker, has 10 points, and Washington's defense has 9. Looking on the bench, just maybe some interesting storylines here. Charbonnet, Zach Charbonnet, 12 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. Little bit interesting there. How much of a hold does Kenneth Walker have on that job? Are we already starting to see some cracks there from Kenneth Walker? Maybe they trust Zach Charbonnet a little bit more there in Seattle.
58% snap percentage for Charbonnet.
So 58%. Yeah, very interesting storyline, which we will get into in one moment. But my player of the week for Alex, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. Just because we were kind of unsure, he's getting up there in age. Were they going to try to, maybe limit his carries a little bit? That is not the case. They ran him all night long. 18 carries, 169 yards. Really, really picking up where he started off last year. Doesn't seem to really be missing a beat. No competition whatsoever, and why he was a first round pick this year.
Absolutely. 28.7 fantasy points, just running people over, running downhill, typical Derrick Henry bowling ball action going on there in last night's game. Fumble, hate it, but man, 28.7 fantasy points. If you've got him on your fantasy team, like Alex does, you at least take solace in that score.
Yeah.
I'm going to point out a guy that you just mentioned going through the players here, Ibuka.
Yeah.
Emeka Ibuka, the rookie, much hyped in the preseason. I feel like as training camp went on, as the regular or the preseason games started happening, Ibuka only rose in sort of expected value.
Yeah.
Godwin, going to be down for at least four, maybe 5 weeks. Ibuka has a chance. We talked about it in the draft recap show. He really has a chance to start the season strong, and he did that a lot. I believe he was targeted, 6 times. I think maybe Evans had a couple more targets, but certainly it was Ibuka with 2 touchdowns, and I believe they were long touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think one was 25 and one was like 30, 35, so they were long
Yeah.
touchdowns, which bodes really well that Baker trusts Ibuka with these high leverage scoring plays.
Yeah, for sure. Just looking at Mark Evans, he did have 8 targets on the day, but didn't really do too much with them, 5 for 51. So I guess it's an interesting conversation to have about Ibuka. I mean, what does his role look like when Chris Godwin comes back? They love him there in Tampa Bay. He's been a fixture there for a while. Can he continue this production with Chris Godwin coming back, or will he be able to do enough to really secure that wide receiver 2 role, and then Godwin kind of takes a step back? I think that's a very interesting question going forward for Alex.
It could turn into a frustration. I sustaining 3 wide receivers is really tough to do.
Yeah.
The Bucks certainly seem to have one of the offenses that's built to do something like that. But I think between the 2 of them, probably between the 3 of them, it's going to be one of those where every game you're going to have at least one of them that's left out of the party. So it could turn into a headache, but there's no doubt that this guy has a ton of skill, a ton of potential. And who knows, if they're playing well and Ibuka's playing well, maybe they don't want to rush Godwin back.
Yeah.
They're saying week 5, but if they're doing well, the more time he has to recover, probably the better.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it like the situation last year with Green Bay. It's just you didn't know which wide receiver was going to go off in a certain week. Was it Jaden Reed? Was it Christian Watson? Was it Romeo Dobbs? Wicks? All those people could turn into that kind of situation. But as of week 1, and no Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield is looking for him very often. But going to my kind of disappointing player for Alex, that would be Terry McLaurin. In a plus matchup against the Giants, only gets 4 targets on the day. 2 receptions. Does play 80% of the snaps. He did have a contract dispute this all season, so maybe it'll take him a little bit longer to get his legs out from under him. But we've kind of seen that a little bit, in the past with wide receivers kind of sitting out in the offseason. CeeDee Lamb last year kind of had the same situation. It kind of took him a little bit to get going. Are we concerned about this at all? With Deebo Samuel now being there in DC, you have the young running back there as well, Bill Crosby Merritt. Zach Ertz does score in this one as well. Are we really concerned about this, or is it just kind of just one of those days?
I think you have to be concerned about it. If you add an elite wide receiver to your team that is, in the same league as you. I feel like, Debo has had points in his career where he has been just as good as McLaurin has been. Debo maybe has always been perhaps a little bit more inconsistent with his point totals, but more volatile. But I think having him there, I mean, this game proved it. He was kind of the more preferred receiver in this one to McLaurin. So you mentioned they have Ertz, they have Krosky Merritt, Jaden Daniels obviously does a lot by himself on the ground.
Man.
So this is a really potent offense with a lot of playmakers, and it could come a little bit to the detriment of Alex's team here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of interesting. You would think that, and it all really kind of depends on Deebo Samuel. How involved he's going to be. This is really the first time, probably in Terry McLaurin's career, where he's had a competent number 2 option on the opposite side of him. So, might be time to temper expectations, but it's probably a little too early to tell. Just knocking the rust off and all that. But you don't like to see 4 targets in a game that was sort of close. It wasn't like any type of a blowout in any type of way. So definitely something to keep an eye on.
I'm going to spotlight a player here that was disappointing to me on the bench, and that's Najee Harris. And the reason I'm spotlighting him is because he had 1 carry for 5 yards, and he caught 1 ball for 5 yards. There was some thought that maybe a Marion Hampton, as highly drafted as he was, would cede some work to the veteran Najee Harris in this one. The Chargers end up winning this game 27-21. Marion Hampton was incredibly involved. Najee Harris was hardly involved.
Yeah.
Just clicking him here to take a look at his snap percentage, 18% for the veteran Harris. The reason that's a problem for Alex, we talked about it in the draft recap, he's only got 4 running backs. There's only one squad with fewer running backs coming out of the draft, and that was Dustin with 3. Alex was second with only 4. Charbonnet, great news on that half. He's your 3rd running back, but I'm concerned that, your 4th guy right now on this team really is just not playing and may not be in the plans too much as we thought he might when he was drafted in the 10th round.
Yeah, I mean, there is a note here that says that they did limit his role for week 1. They only planned for him for 12, 15 plays. So I'm expecting that snap number to go up. Now, how much work does he actually get is remain to be questioned. But, Najee Harris on one side, but then you have Zach Charbonnet on the other. He has 58% snap percentage in this game, has 12 carries and a touchdown, 4 yards per carry per clip. This is becoming more of a 50-50 split, I believe, there in Seattle. And, this is going to be a run-first team with Sam Darnold, I believe. But, it's kind of the opposite spectrum. He took a risk on Najee Harris, but he might get the reward for Charbonnet. Okay. But going over to the losing side here with the second highest point total, that would be Charlie, Reisterstown Rockets. 124.76. Lamar has a great day on only 19 attempts, 209, 2 touchdowns, does have 6 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. Breece Hall, I don't think anyone saw this coming, but 19 carries, 107 yards. Also catches the ball twice for 38 for 15 points. Kenneth Walker, as we talked about, only 10 carries in this one, 20 yards in their loss against San Francisco. Nico Collins, 3 for 5, 25. Kind of, a little bit, not concerning, but I would say just kind of head-scratching there for Nico Collins. Devontae Smith, 3 for 3, 16. Zay Flowers with the career day, 7 for 9, 143 and a touchdown. Evan Ingram also leaves the game in this one. He had a calf injury and did not return. So he's kind of questionable there, only 3.6 points. Deebo Samuel has 10 targets in this one for 77 yards and a rushing touchdown. Chris Boswell has 15 points, and the Jets have 6. Nothing really too much to talk about on the bench other than if Evan Ingram is out, Jonnu Smith did have 6 targets for 15 yards and a touchdown. Does have 6 targets for a tight end. It's pretty good. So may be a viable option if Evan Ingram is out. for any foreseeable amount of time. But
I,
yeah,
am I reacting or you go? What? Either way,
you can
go for it.
react.
No, I was gonna just talk. I was gonna say that Charlie, I think ended up picking Johnny Smith up last year, midseason,
Yep.
got a lot out of him, and made him a 15th round draft pick, and good for him because he looks like this. First of all, the Steelers' offense appears that it could be better than we think. And John Smith was involved in this one. I think even they ran a like a jet sweep type thing at the goal line for him, or I don't know what you would call that play. I don't know if you saw it, but they're definitely keeping this guy involved, and he's picking up where he left off last year.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I was gonna say my spotlight player for Charlie. I'm just gonna go with Brees Hall. I mean,
Yeah.
this was kind of out of nowhere. Everyone was kind of down on Brees Hall. I know we both were coming out of the draft. Only has 58% of the snaps, but he really took those opportunities and made it worthwhile. 19 carries, 107 yards, 5.6 yards per carry. With this Justin Fields offense, we saw it with Lamar. He really elevates all the other running backs on the roster just with the ability of Justin Fields to, take the handoff and push it off to the side. It kind of opens things up in the middle. I think we're kind of seeing that with Brees Hall as well, at least through 1 week against a very tough defense. You really, really like to see this if you are Charlie.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked Brees Hall because we just talked about the Steelers. The other team in that game was Brees Hall and the Jets, and man, they looked pretty good on offense
Yeah.
too. These are two teams that played each other that I think both looked a lot more competent on offense than I expected them to coming out of the gate. Totally new situations, right? They called it the Freaky Friday effect on the broadcast on Red Zone, right, where the two quarterbacks are on opposite teams and playing each other from last year. So really interesting storyline. Brees Hall, 19 carries. I mean, you love it. I know you don't love it. Everyone else loves it. You don't love it. You've got Braylon Allen expecting that maybe he was going to start out the season closer to a 50-50 work share, maybe with Brees Hall. That is not the case, certainly after one game. So,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely. It was a pleasant surprise for Charlie in week one.
Yeah, I mean, and look who he has next week. Buffalo, who just got ran over by Derrick Henry in a similar offense with a running quarterback and a running back, or running quarterback and a running back. Same kind of deal here. You have Justin Fields, you have Brees Hall. You could expect another 100-yard game out of Brees Hall. And then if that's the case, man, what a steal Charlie got in the draft, at least through 2 weeks. Let's see if it can continue. But I guess my concerning player for Charlie. Do we really want to go Nico Collins? Do we want to talk about Nico Collins here? You know,
I mean, I want to talk about Kenneth Walker.
yeah, let's talk about Kenneth Walker. Because I'm not
Okay.
really concerned about Nico. But Kenneth Walker I am concerned about. Because
Yeah.
40% snaps, only 10 carries, 20 yards, 2 yards per clip. Little involvement in the passing game. This is what we're kind of talking about. New quarterback, new system. You know, I would say the coaching, he's kind of a holdover from the last coaching staff. I know Mike McDonald got there last year, but he's kind of a holdover. So maybe he doesn't have as much of a leash as he would in the past, but only 3.9 points this week. And, where you did draft him, you're hoping, especially in a game this close, that he's getting close to 15 to 20 carries, not 10 carries and 40% snap count.
Yeah, we highlighted the 58% for Charbonnet when we talked about Alex's team. So 58% to 40%. That doesn't bode well for the guy who's got 40%. It was not expected. Maybe if you flip those two players and give them each other's percentage, that would be more where you'd expect it to be. But even still, I mean, Walker was a fourth round pick here in the top of the fourth for Charlie. So that's certainly, I guess you get a little bit of a bump for Brees Hall. You take perhaps the same amount away, maybe a little bit more from Kenneth Walker. So a little bit of a wash there. But go ahead. If you want to say something about Nico Collins, I think
Well,
it's
no, let's
worth
keep it with
going
Kenneth
over next
Walker
week.
for a second because I think it's actually interesting that if you reverse the two between Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, I think we would expect that more than what we saw this week. Where it's like Kenneth Walker went for 100 yards and Breece Hall had 40% snap count. I think everyone kind of thought that that's the way the script was going to go. It's just kind of interesting that it was in the reverse for Kenneth Walker. Anything really on the bench other than Jonnu? Not really too much there.
You really don't want to talk about Nico Collins.
Nah, I'm not worried. I mean, he's going to get his care. He's going to get his. I think it's just a tough matchup. I think I read that. The Rams have the best front seven in football, so I think that C.J. Stroud didn't really have a lot of time to really let those routes develop down the field, which Nico really thrives on. So I'm not worried about him at all. He's the main guy there. So, yeah, you're starting him regardless. I mean, you put way too much draft capital in him. You're starting him regardless. So,
I'm kind of thinking that Houston feels a little bit like the Dolphins to me. Maybe the Dolphins are a year more into their kind of decline.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, the Dolphins and the Texans were sort of thought of to be like the premier offenses in the league, and we've kind of seen the Dolphins go downhill. I kind of wonder, are we seeing the beginning of the Texans just kind of stagnating or not improving? Yeah. Maybe they're not going to decline, but have they kind of hit their peak, right? A couple years ago, we were talking about Tank Dell, and I don't even know where the hell Tank Dell is anymore, but
he's there.
Nico Collins. It just feels like the loss of talent at the running back position here, Mixon being hurt. I just wonder, is Houston, are they not as good of an offense as we're expecting to get?
Yeah. I mean, I think Mixon is a big loss, maybe more than what Houston was letting on, just because of that balance. I'm not sure, as C.J. Stroud has kind of taken a step back from his rookie year, where he did very well, but last year was kind of a down year, and this year to start off, not a good start. I'm not ready to roll him out, and again, you're starting him regardless, so you're just hoping things turn around. He has Tampa Bay next week, so probably a little better matchup with the amount of points they gave up to Drake London last week. So probably better things ahead, but something to keep an eye on. So Charlie,
if you're picking again today and you're Charlie, do you take Nakua over Collins? After
I mean, Nakua had so many targets, so many.
He did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty close. I think it's 1-1A, but yeah, I think I'm taking Nakua over him. You just had to fade him a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, so going over to our next matchup, that would be Dustin versus Sarah. Dustin gets the win with the Berlin Banshees, 120.70 to Sarah's Pasadena Pulverizers, 94.02 to go 0-1 on the season. Starting with Dustin, he starts Jared Goff here, 31 for 39, but only 225 yards, touchdown, interception, doesn't do anything on the ground for 10 points. Bijan Robinson looked very, very impressive. Only had 12 carries for 24 yards, but made it up for it in the air, 6 for 7, 100 yards and a touchdown. Kyron Williams, 18 carries, 66 yards and a touchdown for 13.4 points. Drake London had 15 targets in this game. Really peppering in there, but can't do too much with it. Only 8 catches for 55 yards, 9.5. He did get hurt in this one. Shoulder sprain, questionable tag on him. Devontae Adams, 4 for 8, 51 yards for 7 points. Jalen Waddle, 4 for 5, 30 points. Tyler Warren, I forgot his first name, 7 for 9, 76 yards. You'd like to see that. Maybe some shades of Brock Bowers last year. Maybe too early to tell, but like to see 9 targets for your tight end. James Conner, 12 for 39, but does get in the end zone through the air, 4 for 4. Butkerk has 11, and the Denver defense has 18. Looking on the bench, Drake May, 46 attempts in this one for 287 yards. Only runs the ball for 11 yards. Thought it'd be a little more than that for 15 points. And Zach Ertz, scores a touchdown at his old age. Does have Rashid Rice, suspension for a little bit. Still waiting in the wings for him to come back for Dustin. I would say my most concerning, and this might be a trend, uh, you know, with this specific team, NFL team rather, that'd be Jalen Waddle. I mean, just that Miami offense looks so bad. Not a bad matchup either against the Indianapolis Colts. 65% snap count, in a game that they were behind throughout the entire thing. You'd hope that the snap count's a little higher. I know he did get shaken up in this game, but only 4 catches for 30 yards. Being the second option on a struggling offense is not where you want to be, and that's exactly where Jalen Waddle is. Very talented, very, very talented, but if Tua can't give him the ball, he's not going to score points.
Did you see any clips from the Mike McDaniel post-game or day after press conference?
No, I did not.
Ugh. So that guy, you know how nerdy this guy is, right? Like, and he was not unprepared. He was his usual weird self, but like trying to defend this team and have this optimistic outlook, but he wasn't. You couldn't. It was very weird. What he was saying wasn't aligning with how he was saying it, and he was just kind of mumbling his way through like non-answers. It was very weird. But anyway, it's a long way of saying this team's in trouble.
Yeah.
This team is in trouble. I mean, more than anyone after paying close attention to this game and probably making sure Tyreek Hill and Devin Achane were doing stuff. But certainly Jalen Waddle is concerning. I mean, can this team sustain one elite wide receiver, let alone 2?
Yeah.
Like, really doubtful. I feel like Waddle is that guy that you draft every year with high expectations, and he just hasn't quite lived up to what we've seen from him a couple years ago.
Yeah, just second option, maybe, really third option, because you had to put Achane in there probably before Waddle. Just with how bad they struggled. Now, I don't think they're going to be that bad throughout the year, because they'll make a quarterback change and they'll make a coaching change if they're continuing to be that bad. They'll start training away players probably too. So I don't foresee it being that bad, but it definitely is concerning, just as an offense as a whole, that Tua looked like he was completely lost. Not really a good sign there for Jalen Waddle. But again, on the positive, let's go to the positives, and that's going to be Bijan Robinson with the number 2. Was he number 2 overall? He was number 2, right?
He was.
Okay, so 83% snap count doesn't do too much on the ground, but really, really makes up with it through the air. And this is kind of, his floor is so high because of what the damage he can do on the ground and in the air. Looks like he has a good relationship with Penix in Atlanta. Catches the ball. He's going to get all the carries mostly in 83% snap count. Exactly what you want to see out of week 1 out of your second overall pick.
Yeah, and I want to broaden this discussion to the fact that Dustin has Bijan Robinson and Drake London both, 2 Falcons. And I'm wondering if you could think of, it might take a little while to think about all these teams, but is there a team that you would rather have kind of this strategy of having 2 players, 2 skill position players on the same team? Sometimes that's a reason to avoid drafting guys, right? You don't want to have 2 elite players on this offense. I don't know that there's a better situation to have the 2 players on the team than Bijan Robinson and Drake London. There's just nothing else going. I mean, those guys are very clearly the focal points of their offense. Bijan Robinson with a total of 19 touches, got into the end zone. He's on the ground, he's through the air. And Drake London, 15 targets in this one. He gets banged up, he only catches 8 of them. Penix is still going through the trials and tribulations of becoming a consistent passer, but 15 targets for my wide receiver 1, I'll take that all day.
Yeah, even without the production there, targets are the main thing here, and as the targets come, the catches will come. So you love seeing 15 out of there. Now, to your point about pairing two The only other one I can really think of is if you could have Jamar Chase and Chase Brown. I think that's a
That's a good one.
really, really good pairing that could happen in a draft. So, yeah, that's the only one I can really think off the top of my head.
What about Kyron and Nakua?
Yeah, Kyron Nakua as well. But, yeah, I mean, there's definitely, you know, one or two on that list, Bijan Robinson and Drake London. But again, you know, we talked about Jalen Waddle. Can Dustin survive until Rashid Rice can come back? Is a very interesting point. We saw Patrick Mahomes on Thursday or Friday rather, really pepper the ball around to some less than stellar wide receivers. Once he gets Rashid Rice back, watch out. He, I think automatically goes into the top 15 category for wide receivers. So can Dustin, struggle the storm while Jalen Waddle's at the 3 spot? He won this week, so it worked out for him in week 1. But going over the Sarah side here, 0-1, 94.02. Patrick Mahomes, we talked about him all last year. Can he score over 20 points? He does in this one. 24 for 39, 258, a touchdown. Does run the ball in as well for 57 yards. 26.02 points. Jonathan Taylor, 18 carries, 71 yards. Kind of a, with the scoreline, kind of a mediocre day, you would actually say. But does have 18 carries. Hampton, 15 carries for 48 yards. A pretty good debut for a rookie in a tough matchup against Kansas City. CeeDee Lamb, target monster, 13 targets, 110 yards. He dropped a couple of passes in this one as well. It could have been a much bigger number. Also has George Pickens as well. 3 for 4, 30 yards, 4.5 points. Chris Olave, who I actually kind of liked when Sarah drafted him, 13 targets. So, only 7 for 54, but the 13 targets is very, very good to see for Sarah. Mark Andrews, is this the start of last year? Only 1 target, only 1 catch for 5 yards. Very, very concerning there. Jordan Mason, who I also liked in the after draft show, 15 carries in this one for 68 yards, 8 points. Jake Bates for 6.7, and the Minnesota defense for 6 as well. Looking on her bench, Justin Herbert, 27 points. Very good day for him. Keenan Allen, kind of forgotten about. Old man there in L.A. Catches a touchdown, 16 points. So I guess the first player I kind of want to talk about in terms of the best player here was Patrick Mahomes. They kind of struggled running the ball a little bit in this one. He throws 39 times, which we haven't really seen too much as Kansas City has played really good defense. They've had limited opportunities to actually throw the ball because they don't get the ball as much because it's not as high scoring of a game. But 39 attempts in this one for a touchdown and runs the ball for 57 yards, which is not something we've seen too much out of him. If he can continue to do that, I mean, kind of maybe a steal. Is he back to, his runaway MVP type of days?
Well, I tell you what, it was a nice way to spend a Friday night for Sarah watching these two quarterbacks go at it. I mean, it's nice to come out of week 1 with kind of a quarterback competition that you like to have. I mean, Herbert, I think, was extremely impressive on the other side of the ball. And Mahomes, despite having what I think was like 43 yards at halftime, he had a heck of a second half and really showed that he's creative, that he can make the best of bad situations after Worthy leaves the game. Our old friend Hollywood Brown steps it up in a big way. Kelsey makes a huge play to score. It was kind of an exciting second half, and watching Mahomes do his thing was really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only concern here is, Xavier Worthy goes out. They're not really sure about what his injury prognosis really looks like, but losing a pass catcher there, they do have a lot of just like old names. Juju Smith-Schuster, I saw him run around out there. Hollywood Brown as well. Travis Kelsey, on the older side. So, he still does have options, in Kansas City, but you really like to have Xavier Worthy out there for those big time plays. Yeah, it looks like they're already rolling him out for next week. So I guess my question for you is, Patrick Mahomes goes against Philadelphia next week. Justin Herbert has Vegas next week. Who are we starting?
Close.
Justin
It's
Herbert
close.
has Vegas on the road, and Patrick Mahomes is at home against Philadelphia. It's close? Is that where we're going to leave it
at? Give me Mahomes.
Yeah.
Look, and here's why I say that. It wasn't my gut, but once I thought about it, in a game as important as Chiefs Eagles that could have that much star power in it, the best players in the world step up in those situations. So I'm going to count on Mahomes to step up into the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well. I think he has a higher floor just from what we saw from week one than Herbert has, because I could foresee the Chargers getting out to a big lead and then just not having to throw the ball against Vegas. Vegas was not very impressive in their week one debut, even though they did get the win, I do believe. But just a higher floor in a marquee game. I think that they're going to use him quite a bit in that game.
Yeah.
My concern, I would say, let's go with Mark Andrews. Because
I do want to talk about the receivers too, but let's go Mark.
Okay, so Mark Andrews, 40 points Ravens scored, high scoring game, 1 target. No Isaiah Likely either. And he's coming back soon. So is he even usable until proven otherwise?
I mean, look, just got Hunter Henry on the bench. Okay, decent week, 8 targets, 66 yards. He caught half of his targets. Was tight end 16 this week. Like, definition of mediocre. I think if I had to pick right now, I think I'd still stick with Andrews. I think you have to. I do think you have to. I don't think you can count him out. I don't think the Ravens are going to totally make him irrelevant. I think they're going to use him, in a game against Flacco and the Browns. I think this is a time when Andrews is probably going to step up and be the guy that we know he is.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at his last year, his first 4 games, 2 points, 7 points, 0 points, 0 points in a game that he played in. Mind you, those 2 0 points. Did pick it up as the season went on, but it did take him a little bit of time to, get back on track. You would just thought that after last year, how last year ended, that they would have wanted to get him involved a little more, and they just didn't. It was really the Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry show for Baltimore against the Bills. So I'm more concerned than you are, I would say, especially with Isaiah Likely coming back not this week, but probably next week. It's just... I was an Andrews owner last year, so I know the struggle, and you're not getting targets, you're not getting catches.
He did score in both games against Cleveland last year,
okay,
for what it's worth.
Okay. So you wanted to talk about the wide receivers.
I did, because it's something I didn't notice in the draft recap, is she has handcuffed her top 2 receivers.
Yeah.
Right? So CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, she starts both of them.
Yeah.
Lamb has a typical Lamb 13 target effort, and Pickens goes 3 for 4 for 30. I feel like, unlike what we were talking about earlier with Bijan and with Drake London having 2 kind of key players on the same team, I don't like that strategy if they're both receivers on the Cowboys and the Saints. The Cowboys would probably be in a better position. I'm a little bit higher, obviously, on Lamb and Pickens than Olave and Rashid Shaheed. But having 2 pairs of receivers from 2 teams, I don't know that you're going to feel comfortable starting those second guys in those offenses very often.
Yeah.
Now, just kind of the other side of the coin is she does have Keenan Allen,
Yeah.
who let's say week number 2,
Yeah.
right? Keenan Allen has to start.
Yeah.
Lamb, Allen, and Olave. You can't start Pickens and Lamb both, can you? Against the Giants, maybe. I think they play the Giants next week.
It's kind of weird because I feel like they both could go off. Like, I'm higher on this Dallas passing attack than maybe most, just because I had Dak Prescott. But I could foresee them going off together. But it's also kind of one of those things where it's like, it helps Lamb's value if Pickens gets hurt. Then you're seeing like the 16 targets, the 17 target kind of days that CD Lamb's used to. So again, I'm higher on Olave than you are, so I kind of like that. But he is questionable with I don't know what calf injury. But you still have Allen there, and will his usage be 10 targets a game? I'm not sure. I think it's just kind of the way that game script went. So, yeah, she does have some options, but again, you're correct. She did kind of handcuff herself at the wide receiver position. Okay, so that is Sarah, 0 for 1, 94 points. Better luck in week 2. So now let's go to our third matchup. We're not going fast at all, and that is completely fine. We have the Columbia Clown College getting their first win of the season, 118.18 to the Curtis Bay Chum Buckets. That would be headed by Josh, 106.78. Let's start with Mike. Baker Mayfield, 17 for 32, 167, but 3 touchdowns on the day for 22.58 points. Jahmyr Gibbs, only 9 carries in this one, but does have 10 targets for 10 catches against Green Bay for 31 yards. The yardage wasn't there, but man, oh man, do you love 10 targets for your running back. James Cook, who, again, I would say most people were down on, really shined in this one. 13 carries, 44 yards, does get in the end zone, and is involved in the passing game as well for 18 points. Travis Hunter, 6 for 8, 33 yards in his debut. You had Garrett Wilson being a favorite target of Justin Fields, going back to those Ohio State days. 7 for 9, 95 yards and a touchdown. Jameson Williams, 4 for 5, 23. Brock Bowers, another 100-yard day, 5 for 8. Javonte Williams has 2 touchdowns on Thursday, 15 carries, 54 yards. Jake Elliott with 8, and Baltimore with -4 points, almost 500 yards given up. Looking at the bench, I think there's some interesting names here that maybe we can talk about. Trey Benson, 8 carries, 69 yards. J.K. Dobbins, so much for the R.J. Harvey hype, has 16 carries in this one for 63 yards and a touchdown. And I would also be failed to mention Dallas Goedert has 7 targets for 44 yards. But I guess the player I want to highlight the most in terms of positives is Garrett Wilson. We were all kind of concerned about how this offense was going to look. How much were they going to throw? Was it going to be more of a run base? But it seems like he's really the only guy there that can catch the ball. You have Josh Reynolds as the wide receiver 2, Alan Lazard as wide receiver 3. You're not afraid about them at all. Nothing really much of the tight end position as well. And had a really good connection with Justin Fields through 1 week against a very good defense. I mean, he was paired against Jalen Ramsey in this one. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Wide receiver number 6 on the week. Has Buffalo next week. Are we seeing more of this as the season goes on, or is there going to be some regression?
Well, as a Josh Fields owner, similar to how you feel about Prescott, I'm hoping and leaning on the fact that there will be more of this for the Jets. I didn't show too much confidence by benching Fields here in week 1, but I'm certainly going to be more confident on Fields and a couple of these Jets that we've talked about, including Garrett Wilson, along with Breece Hall, for sure in that offense. I think I think signs are pointing up for him. Like, given what we were expecting, I think 7 for 995 and a score is just as good as we could have hoped for in week 1. And I want to say, like Wilson wasn't the only player on this team that kind of overperformed where I thought they might be. You
Yeah.
mentioned Javonte Williams. This is a guy I highlighted in the draft recap show. I was pleasantly surprised. 15 carries, scored twice. Looked, great, not a great kind of efficiency night for Javonte, the veteran, but certainly was heavily involved in that Dallas offense. And then J.K. Dobbins, 16 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. Also caught 2 balls for 5 yards. Very involved in the offense. I think a lot of people expected that R.J. Harvey was going to come out and be the lead back right away. It doesn't look like that's necessarily the case.
No.
Not sure what Harvey's snap percentage was, but Dobbins played 50% of the snaps, 53%, and scored 13.8 fantasy points.
Yeah, so RJ Harvey was at 29, but he did go 6 for 70. So, I mean, really good efficiency there. I think for right now, it's 50-50, but I could see, just with the explosiveness of RJ Harvey, kind of getting more of those opportunities as the season goes on. But as you know, NFL coaches, like the good pass protectors, the good pass blockers, usually go with veterans in that sort of scenario. So as RJ Harvey learns the kind of pass protection, I think that this is kind of what you're going to see. Limited opportunities, and can he make the most out of those opportunities? I guess my disappointing player is going to be Jameson Williams. Just signed a big contract, in a game that they were behind most of the day. Only 4 for 5 for 23 yards. Nothing really going. 100% snap count, so he was on the field the entire time. But Jared Goff really couldn't stretch the field. New offensive coordinator now. What's his role going to be? Amon-Ra had a nice day. So, just I'm a little bit concerned. I thought he was going to be more involved in terms of, pass catching ability. And, he just signed the big contract. So, I'm just a little bit concerned about Jameson Williams, about his involvement. Is he going to be more boom or bust week in and week out?
I definitely sense that concern. I will say I'm a little bit less concerned only because I think this Green Bay Packers defense might actually be really, really legit, like
Yeah.
one of the best in the league. So I'm gonna chalk a little bit of this up to that. He did get 5 targets. He certainly like more than that, but we know that he is certainly capable of turning a single target into a very, very large game and a big performance. So, he played 100% of the snaps. I have confidence there's too many offensive playmakers on this Lions team that they can't figure out how to be a little bit more efficient in the passing game.
Yeah, and I will say that this offense, and just historically, is way different when they play indoors versus when they play outdoors. It's just this. Jared Goff is a different quarterback when they play indoors. My only concern is that I think no matter what the score is, they're gonna be kind of leaning on the running backs a little more than I like. I don't think they're ever really going to go extremely pass happy, with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery there as well. So I guess I'm just a little bit more concerned. Laporta also had a good day as well. Where does he fall in that pecking order, I guess, is really the big question going into week 2. But yeah. Anything else
Yeah,
with
for a
Mike's
fifth
team?
round pick.
Yeah.
Um, I honestly, there's like nobody on this team that I thought was disappointing at all.
Yeah.
You could maybe say Travis Hunter. We kind of the mystery, right, was how much was he going to play on offense, how much was he going to play on defense. 64% snap percentage on offense, not terrible. 8 targets, not terrible. So put up 6 fantasy points, but hey, 8 targets is probably a couple more than I would have anticipated for him in his first game.
Yeah, that was just an entirely weird game. They had like the 2-hour weather delay, and then they come back out.
That's right.
And Brian Thomas only catches 1 ball in this one. He does score, but it was just an odd game there in
Yep.
Carolina. But going over to the losing side here, 106.78. That would be Josh going to 0-1. Jalen Hurts has a nice day. Runs the ball in twice for 62 yards, 19 for 23 for 120 or 152 through the air. Josh Jacobs, 19 carries, 66 yards, and a touchdown for 13.5 points. Alvin Kamara, only 11 carries for 45, but does get in the end zone for 12.7 points. Puka Nacua leaves this game, then comes back. Has 11 targets in this one, 10 catches, 130 yards. Is questionable, though. So that is something that Josh will have to take a look at. Something that he took a look at all last year with all his injuries that he did have. Xavier Worthy, really unfortunate that he runs into his own player and hurts his collarbone with a big fat 0 there. Jacoby Myers, 8 for 10, 97 yards. I feel like he's just the most forgotten wide receiver in fantasy football. He just consistently just gets targets in Vegas, so good on him, 13.7 points. David Njoku, kind of a trendy tight end pick in the all-season, 3 for 6, 37 yards. Jerome Ford, 6 carries, 8 yards, only 1 reception for -3 for 1 point. Chase McLaughlin has 6, and the Green Bay defense, as you mentioned, has 12. It's a very high-octane offense. Brock Purdy gets hurt, and this one's going to miss a week or two, 16 points. R.J. Harvey, limited carries, but does have 70 yards. And Josh Palmer for Buffalo, 5 for 9, 61, maybe is somewhat interesting. My disappointing person or player for Josh is going to be David Njoku. You know how much Joe Flacco loves his tight ends. And this is also kind of a weird game. It's kind of lower scoring than I guess a lot of us thought it would be with how bad the Bengals defense is and how good the Bengals offense is. So you thought it'd be a little more. But he was overshadowed by another tight end on this roster. So, has some competition here. Did have 84% of the snaps. But, the other tight end, Harold Fana, had 9 targets in this one. So, how do we feel about David Njoku? Are we concerned? Are we, we just riding it out? Better days ahead?
Definitely concerning. Definitely lost value from where I would have valued him in the draft. I really liked him as a pick. Where he went in the draft, I can't find exactly. It looked like, what is this? 7th round? Like after Kelsey, after Andrews, after Hawkinson. I sort of liked him in that territory. I thought he was actually had a chance of becoming like a top 5 tight end with the talent that he has, with the usage, especially late last year, where he was 90 to 95% snap percentage. 84, as you mentioned, is a slight tick down, maybe a few snaps less than he was playing consistently toward the end of the season. This rookie tight end they've got, they really like him. What, he's from somewhere in Michigan. What is he from? Is he a Wolverine?
This Bowling Green
guy. Okay, not Wolverine. Bowling Green.
Shows how much we know about him.
That's right. But hey, he's going to be a hot pickup target for maybe a few people this week. We'll see. But I'm concerned.
Yeah. There's actually a little more, firepower to this offense. It looks like Jerry Jeudy's going to get his looks from Flacco. Even Cedric Tillman had a nice one as well. So it's not this old Cleveland offense where, there was really maybe 1 or 2 playmakers. Now it's, 3 or 4 maybe. Dylan Sampson also, in there as well, involved in the passing game. So concerning for sure. And it doesn't get much better if they go to a different quarterback, I would say, as we're kind of expecting at some point in the season if they go in a different direction. So, yeah, I'm definitely concerned with David Njoku.
Well, here's my big concern, and this is going to be an issue right away.
Okay.
The depth on this team is such that now without Xavier Worthy, right, he's out. He's at least going to be out, we think, next week. Might miss a few weeks. Jerome Ford, after that performance, you cannot start him again.
Yeah.
You just can't. The rookie Sampson, outplayed him, out-touched him, outplayed him. You can't start him. So all of a sudden, R.J. Harvey, who we talked about as
Yeah.
who we thought was going to be the guy in Denver, coming off of 29% snap percentage, now did have an explosive run of, I think, 50 or so. So definitely had a big explosive play. I feel like you have to start him.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have a hard time hiding him, and you're going to hope that he either has an explosive play or that his week one performance is going to earn him some more carries coming into week two.
Well, I mean, the bigger problem is who's going to be the third wide receiver. I mean, you have Xavier Worthy out, Jawan Jennings, who is also questionable, and now he doesn't have Brock Purdy for the next coming week. Are you starting Joshua Palmer? Because that's the only healthy one you have. And what is he as the third option there? Keon Coleman had a big day. Shakir is listed as number one, third option on a run-first team, I would say. Yeah, it's just very concerning there in terms of the depth. I think we did talk about the depth of this team coming out of the draft, and it's showing its ugly head very early. But let's go to positive, and I would say Puka Nacua. There were some concerns about Devontae Adams being there. Doesn't really seem to be an issue. Matthew Stafford's safety blanket. Puka Nacua has 11 targets, does his thing, comes out of the game with a supposed concussion, but comes right back in, continues to score. Definitely showing why he should have been picked, late first, early second round.
Yeah, dude, that guy is a warrior. Not only was it the concussion, he ended up getting pulled off the field again for the hit that he took.
Yeah, the bleeding from the eye.
Yeah, so that dude is a warrior. 10 for 11. Look, in a game that the Rams struggled offensively, for him to go 10 for 11 means that when things aren't working for that offense, Puka Nacua is working for that offense.
Yeah.
And Puka Nacua is putting up numbers, 130 yards. They scored just 14 points in this game.
And 63% snaps. Like, only 63. And he has 11 targets. And against a Houston defense who's kind of sneaky good, I would say. So,
yeah,
he has Tennessee this week, who is a much better matchup. You could see 15, 16 targets if he, is cleared to play. So definitely good value there. Yeah.
His snap percentage wasn't under that's like his lowest since week 9 of last season.
Yeah, I mean that's just because he moved out of the game. But yeah, so with more snaps, more targets, Matthew Stafford is looking for him. So very good news. From a wide receiver room that's questionable, you are not questioning Puka Nacua. So Josh will be looking to get his first win next week on the back of Puka. But again, talented roster, just some questions at the tight end position and with that third wide receiver.
Yep.
So let's go over to our next game. That is going to be your matchup, which was the Westminster Wrecking Crew getting their first win of the season, 104.82, to the Pratt Street Po Boys, 81.52. Let's start with Scott's team. You have Kyler Murray, 21 for 29, 163, 2 touchdowns, very efficient on the day in their win against New Orleans. Chua Hubbard, 16 carries, 57 yards, 3 for 5 through the air, 32, and a touchdown. David Montgomery has 11 carries for only 25 yards, 4 catches for 18. Jamar Chase, very disappointing day in a very weird game, 2 for 5, 26 yards, as that Bengals offense really didn't get going in that one. Brian Thomas, also weird game, has 7 targets but only 1 catch and does get in the end zone on a rush for 8.5 points. Lat McConkey has 9 targets for 74 yards. Kyle Pitts, 7 for 8, 59 yards. DK Metcalf, 4 for 7, 83 in his debut with the Steelers. Cam Little? It is Cam Little. Cam Little with 16, and the Arizona defense with 5. On the bench, J.J. McCarthy, who he has, 22 points. And just a lot of injuries, it seems like. Junkins, who I don't even think is signed yet, Brandon Ayuk, Isaiah Likely. So I guess my low performer, maybe that we can talk about a little bit. We don't want to talk about Chase too much. I want to kind of talk about David Montgomery here. Because as the number 2 running back for the squad, Scott through the draft kind of waited on running backs. 83% snap count, but only 11 carries. Not good efficiency at all. Gibbs really took over in the receiving portion of this. So is he a viable running back too? Or is it more of what the past was like, where he's very viable, very serviceable running back too, scored touchdowns, all that good stuff? Or is Gibbs now taking that really 1A role that we didn't really see in the past?
Could the running back situation be the area of the Lions offense that might be affected the most by this offensive coordinator change?
Yeah.
Because what did you say his snap percentage is this week?
83.
83?
83.
So it did not exceed 56% last year. The entire season, 56% was his high. So something's weird here that he's not really getting the work, but he's playing a lot of snap. Well, 11 carries. What does that look like compared to last year? That's
he was getting 17, 23, 12, 12, 9, 9, 17, 12, 15, 8, 21, 14. I wonder if they ran like 2 running back sets. Like if they had them both on the field at the same time. I didn't really watch this game really at all, but
I didn't either.
Yeah, that's very odd that it was 83% and they only had 11 carries.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, so I think it's just something to keep an eye on, especially for Scott, because of how he waited on running backs. He really needs him to perform out of that running back 2 role. Because there's not much help on the bench. You have Kareem Hunt, didn't really do anything. Algier is going to be behind Bijan. Does have 10 carries, though, so something there. Just need David Montgomery to get more carries, basically. And then have Jahmyr Gibbs be the pass-catching back, which I don't know if that's going to be a thing. But I guess the positive here, I'm going to go a little different here for the positive. Kyle Pitts. Okay. Kyle Pitts. 8 targets. 8 targets on the day. Michael Penix did look for him. 7 receptions, 59 yards. 78% snap count. He only did that, let's see, twice last year. 3 times last year, where he had 78% snap count. So on the field, new quarterback, new kind of system. 8 targets out of your tight end spot is a good position to be. Is this the year that Kyle Pitts ends in the top 10 of tight ends? Because in his first year he did, but after that he's been outside the top 10. Does he finish in the top 10 this year?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
They've got Mooney returning at some point. I think that's gonna reduce Pitts' 8 targets down to 5 or 6, and he's gonna just be in the middle of the pack with everybody else around the 15-16 mark.
Yeah, it is a very crowded offense there in Atlanta. Bijan's gonna get his work. Drake's gonna get his targets. Ray McLeod is, not fantasy viable, but he is there, and he does get targets. So, very crowded, but, after week 1, you do like to see that they are looking for him, and that maybe his floor will be a little higher than it has been in previous seasons.
And remember, Bijan sort of takes away from both ends of it.
That's true.
Rushes, and he's catching a ton of passes, too.
That's true. So, yeah, Scott's team, 104.82, has his first win on the season. Good start for him. But let's go over to your side. 81.52. That is the low of the week, as mentioned. Starting with Trevor Lawrence. Goes with the free agent quarterback. Doesn't do really anything for you. 19 for 31, 178, and a touchdown. Also has an interception as well in that very weird game. Travion Henderson, his debut was some to be desired. 5 carries, 27 yards. Does get involved in the passing game. 6 for 6, 24 for 8.1 points. Jalen Warren does have a receiving touchdown, but only 11 carries for 39 yards, 12.9 points. Amon-Ra, 6 targets, 45. That Lions offense just kind of looked like in a funk. Malik Neighbors, 5 for 12. Poor efficiency, but had 71 yards in their loss against the Commanders. T. Higgins, also a very weird game, 3 for 433. Travis Kelce only has 4 targets, but makes the best of it with a touchdown from Patrick Mahomes. Tony Pollard, 18 carries, 60 yards. Does have a fumbled loss in this one. Lutz has 9, and Buffalo's defense has 1. Looking on the bench, Caleb Williams, 24 points. Justin Fields, 29 points. Keon Coleman, 21 points on 11 targets. So you do have some decisions you have to make in terms of wide receiver and quarterback, with both on the bench playing extremely well. First thing I want to talk about is what went into your decision to pick up Trevor Lawrence and start him in week 1.
Well, Justin Fields was penciled in there. The more I thought about how good that Steelers defense should have been, that I think we all expected it to be, and combined with the fact that this is Fields in a new situation, with a team that historically just has bad freaking luck all the time, you thought that this could easily turn into a disaster. Right, we didn't have high expectations for Breece Hall. We didn't have high expectations for Garrett Wilson, and so coincidentally, it wasn't a shock that we didn't have high expectations necessarily for Fields. That's why I was able to get him way late in this draft, the last person to take a quarterback. So, all that said, I just got a little bit too nervous with the what ifs and thought that matchup of Trevor Lawrence against Carolina was going to be fruitful. Unfortunately, that game went into a weather delay midway through, and neither offense were the same after that weather delay. So a little bit of unfortunate circumstance there, but I really like kind of the prospects of Caleb Williams and Justin Fields moving forward.
Okay, so I want to go over your top player that I kind of want to talk about in terms of this week, and that would be Travis Kelce. Only 4 targets in this one, but you would have to believe that the targets are now going to open up now that Xavier Worthy is out, Rashid Rice is suspended. Now they can game plan more towards, him being involved more in the offense. As, Xavier Worthy went out, they kind of just went with their plan beforehand. Are you expecting good things, at least for the next 4 or 5 weeks, while he should be really one of the primary targets in this Chiefs offense?
I'm a little nervous. Xavier Worthy left this game early.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce really should have been more involved earlier on. There was quite a while through this game where he had 1 target. He got a few of those targets late in the game. He got the touchdown later in the game. So I'm a little nervous about Kelce moving forward for sure. No other options currently on the roster, so I'm riding with him. But a little bit concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that now that they have a full week to actually game plan him in, when Xavier Worthy went out, I think they already had their plan in place. I think that it's going to be a little more fruitful. You're going to see those targets go up, at least for the next 5 weeks, while Rashid Rice comes back and Xavier Worthy comes back as well. So I'm not a huge Hollywood Brown truther. So I think I can see his targets going down and Kelce's going up. I'm a little more optimistic about Kelce's chances going forward, at least in the next couple weeks.
For sure.
My concerning. Let's talk about Travion Henderson for a second. Your number one, basically, running back, as you also weighted in terms of drafting running backs in the draft. 35% snap count in a very competitive game. Only 5 attempts. Kind of saves the day with 6 receptions, but 35% just looking real close at the other running backs. Ramondre Stevenson had 65% snap count. Sooner rather than later, you would hope Henderson, gets the bulk of the work. But, Miami next week, Pittsburgh, and Carolina, you have to start him, I believe, just looking at your roster. But how confident are you going forward with him? We obviously think it's going to get better, but how soon do you think it's going to get better?
I'm pretty confident in that. Look, the Patriots lost in Week 1 to the Raiders. Okay, so he was 5 for 17. We're talking Ramondre Stevenson. I'm sorry, 7 for 15. Even worse than 5 for 17. 7 for 15. Terrible average, 2.1 yards per rush. I think there was a little bit of a spark that they got with Henderson on the field. He caught 6 passes, 6 of 6 through the air for 24 yards. So I think they're probably learning how to use him a little bit in that offense. But if he is showing more, he had a 5.4 yards per carry average. If he shows every week that he's better than Ramondre Stevenson, he's just going to earn more and more targets. And let's be honest, is anyone really that excited about Ramondre Stevenson this year? It didn't seem like it in the draft.
Also, kind of a note, Henderson is also returning kicks as well. I know that was a kind of a conversation, I think it was about Kyron Williams a couple years ago, about him returning kicks as well. Just something to keep an eye on. Also, new Patriots coaching staff, Mike Vrabel's there. Ramondre Stevenson is a holdover from the previous administration. So, yeah, it's better days ahead for sure. It's just you need it to happen sooner for him to be completely productive. You just need to see him on the field more. So I guess my question is, who are you going with next week, Justin Fields or Caleb Williams? You can keep it to one.
Right now, it's probably Justin Fields.
Yeah, for sure. Justin Fields has Buffalo next week, so that should be another high-scoring game where he is heavily involved. So 0-1. Like you said at the beginning of the show, a long, long season to go. But let's go over to our next matchup, and that would be my matchup, of course. So the Penn Prairie Wolves goes to 1-0, 111.52, to my 90.52. Union Bridge Badgers go to 0-1. Joe Burrow, not impressive debut, 4 for 23, 113 yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey, though, very impressive. 22 carries, 69 yards, 9 for 10, 73. This is a Christian McCaffrey line if I've ever seen one. Involved in the rushing attack, involved in the passing attack. Aaron Jones, 9 for 23, and a touchdown through the air. A.J. Brown, 1 for 1, 8 yards against Dallas. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 9 for 13, 124. Does have a fumble loss. Ricky Pearsall, 4 for 7, 108. Sam Laporta, 6 for 9, 79 yards for 10 points. Stephon Diggs, 6 for 7, 57. McManus has 10, and the San Francisco defense has 11. Looking at the bench, Hollywood, 16 targets. You'd have to say that the targets might go down a little bit, but he's going to be involved, as Xavier Worthy and Rashid Rice are out for injury and suspension. Dylan Sampson as well, very much involved in kind of like a Travion Henderson kind of line. Very inefficient on the ground, but very involved in the passing game. So interesting name to keep an eye on for Jake. But my first, just going at, the most impressive player is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he picked up an injury designation. Everyone kind of lost their minds. They're like, is this a repeat of last year? with a calf. He kind of dispelled those rumors that I don't know why anyone's really concerned. Well, I know why everyone is really concerned because I had you last year and you said the same thing. Soapbox, I am off. But sees 31 total touches this week. Bulk of the carries, receiving has 9 receptions as well. And now with Brock Purdy being out, you have to think that San Francisco is going to lean on him even more in a very plus matchup against New Orleans next week.
It's so scary, but it's so hopeful at the same time. It's like, man, I love when he gets this much work, but then you're like, oh, do I really want him getting this much work, right? It's a dangerous proposition, as it always is with Christian McCaffrey. But no, I mean, hey, 22 carries. Wow, that might be the most of anyone
Yeah, it might be.
on the week. I haven't seen a number like that, and then 10 catches out of 10 targets out of the backfield from Purdy, also up there with some of the best pass catching running backs on the week. So really impressive week for sure. I also really like what I'm seeing just across this team generally. I mean, Ricky Pearsall 4 for 7, 108, going over the 100 mark is big there for Pearsall. On the bench, you mentioned Sampson. I mean, my gosh, 12 carries, 8 receptions, 8 for 8 through the air on just 43% snaps. That means the Browns, when they have him on the field, they are using him as a weapon out of off of the bench. You got to think he certainly earned even more work if it's possible. If they're going to give him maybe up to 15 carries a game, that would be beautiful for Jake. But
Yeah.
no, I think that add to the fact 16 targets. You mentioned you don't love Hollywood Brown, but 16 targets in week 1 is hard to argue with.
Yeah.
They were pretty short targets, I think. Generally, they were using him over the middle of the field. But
Yeah, I mean,
just
only 10
good.
yards per, or really 6 yards per target, so not really stretching it down the field with Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I'm a little more concerned about Ricky Pearsall just with Brock Purdy being out. He is kind of the number one option there right now, especially with Jennings banged up. Just you have to temper your expectations a little bit while Brock Purdy's going out. But I want to talk about A.J. Brown. Very competitive game. It only has 1 target for 1 catch, 8 yards. A little bit concerning just because of how this offense runs. It runs through Jalen Hurts running the ball. It also runs through Saquon Barkley. He's going to get his looks as well. How much can A.J. Brown really, take out of that orange, that squeeze out of that orange with whatever's left, especially with Jalen Hurts, kind of playing mistake-free football, not really going to be throwing many jump balls. 87% snap count, but number one on an offense that doesn't really throw the ball too much.
It's definitely one of the more mysterious stat lines of the week. I mean, I look at that 1 target and I think, God, could he have been nursing some kind of an injury or something? But certainly we would have heard about that by now, or someone would have made an observation somewhere. I think that would have probably come out if he was limited by injury. And he played 87% of the snaps. So you don't really want to get into the habit of hiding a guy on the field, giving him 87% of the snaps if he's not 100%. So very weird stat line. They win this game 24-20 on opening night. Maybe they just didn't think they needed him and that they had the game under control, although it was a very close game. So definitely a little bit of concern there for where you drafted him. You're drafting him to be a second round value for you, and you're right, just a lot of offensive weapons in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would say I'm a little bit more concerned just the way that offense runs. But again, you use the second round pick on him, you're going to start him, so you're kind of married to whatever production he's going to provide for you. Anything else with Jake's team? I think we covered most of it. One thing to mention, just with Christian McCaffrey, he does have his handcuff, so he does have Brian Robinson Jr. on the bench in case he does go down. So nice insurance policy for Jake, for Christian McCaffrey. But going over to the losing side, that's going to be the Union Bridge Badgers, 0-1, 90.52. Dak Prescott throws a lot of passes, but only for 188 yards. I picked the over on the yards. I lost all my money for that. Only 7.8 points. Genti has 19 carries, but only 38 yards. Does score his first NFL touchdown in their win against New England. Devin Achane and that horrible Miami offense, he was the lone bright spot. Does catch a touchdown for 15 points. Tyreek Hill, 6 targets, 4 catches, 40 yards for 6 points. DJ Moore, 3 for 5, 68, and a fumble loss at the end of the game. Calvin Ridley, who was shadowed by Patrick Surtain, 5 for 8, 27 yards. George Kittle, who is injured now with a hamstring, going to be out a couple of weeks, 4 for 4, 25, does score a touchdown. Tyrone Tracy, also another horrible offense with the Giants. Might be a quarterback change sooner rather than later, is what I am hearing. 10 carries, 24 yards for 4.5 points. Fairbairn scores 14, and the Houston defense scores 9. On the bench, lots of things on the bench here. Braylon Allen, only 6 carries, but scores a touchdown. Travis Etienne, 16 carries, 143 yards. He played so well that they traded Tank Bigsby away. So he looks to be the main option, at least for now, in Jacksonville. Cedric Tillman, 5 for 8, 52, and a touchdown. Michael Pittman, with Daniel Jones throwing him the ball, 6 for 8, 80, and a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid also scores a touchdown against Baltimore. So I guess my main... I'm going to go a little different. My biggest performer, who I want to talk about the most, is Travis Etienne. Even though he wasn't a performer because he was on the bench. But just a very interesting scenario now. You know, a couple years ago, he was a second-round pick. And, you know, again, new type of offense, evaluating all the players. 61% snap count, but 16 carries, 8.9 yards per carry. In this offense, I think he might, at least for the foreseeable future, be the number one guy and have some fantasy value in the flex spot.
It seems like it. You know, they trade Tank Bigsby to the Eagles here just the other day, and so that clears the path for him to continue dominating the workload. There is Tootin behind him, who's buried deep on my bench with the hopes that he becomes relevant. But you know, it seems like they're very confident in the veteran ETN. 16 carries, 143 yards. That was probably the highest rushing total of the week, I think. He's probably the leading rusher in week one, involved in the passing game. I think you instantly are able to start him, and my guess is you probably will over Tyrone Tracy, who is one of the players, just as a transition, that I'm pretty concerned about, Adam. The Giants really don't look very good.
No.
It's going to be another futile season. And if you look back to last season, this is a pretty, normal performance for him. Unfortunately, he had 10 carries. He was kind of up and down in carries last year, but was never a guy that put up a lot of yards. I mean, the last time he was over 60 yards last year was week 10.
Yeah.
He had a nice little streak there early to mid last season, but really, wasn't that impressive, especially from a yards per carry standpoint. He became very touchdown dependent toward the end of last year, and I'm just wondering, given that this offense is expected to be one of the worst probably in the league, is that a little bit of a concern for Tracy?
Oh, for sure. I'm hoping that they go to Jackson Dart as soon as possible, because I think if they go more to a rookie quarterback, they're going to be more run heavy just to keep the pressure off him. Tyrone Tracy had a good streak here, through week 8 through week 10, 145 yards, 66 yards, and 103. So he does have the ability to do this. I just want... This offense just kind of looked dysfunctional, to be completely honest. I watched some tape about a red zone visit that they had, and it was just like, what were they even thinking running this play? So for now, he's going to be sitting on the bench. Travis Etienne is inserted there. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a good way to start against what should be a pretty good matchup against the Commanders. So definitely concerned there for Tyrone Tracy. But going to
All right, let me ask you.
yes.
Well, I was going to ask you about another skill position player that you have maybe some concerns about. You alluded to it earlier in the pod, but Tyreek Hill and
Yeah.
the Dolphins. The Dolphins generally, the situation. Let me just maybe you can talk about it in the context of this. There's been rumors that Tyreek Hill may be maybe a likely candidate to be traded to another team sometime in the coming weeks. There seems to be some unhappiness there between the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill. He continues to look very upset on the bench, as we alluded to in the draft recap show, that he tends to get a little hot on the sidelines. Are you rooting for him at this point to be traded to another team?
It all depends where. I mean, to be completely honest, like, would I love for him to go to Kansas City? Yes, I would. I mean, but would I like him to go to, let's say, the Raiders? I don't know about that. It's always kind of weird, and we kind of talk about this each year, where you have a performer at a certain level on one team, and then they go to another team, and it completely changes. So, you know, the Bills, I would like to see him go to, but there's a lot of other teams where I wouldn't like to see him go to. I still think that this Miami offense can get it together. Uh, I'm not bailing ship on that completely, immediately. So, this trade might not happen till later in the season if they're out of playoff contention. So for right now, I'm kind of just hoping that they just get it together too. It gets that connection back with Tyreek Hill. But again, I've kind of waited on wide receiver. I'm hoping he just has one of those blow-up weeks. Not a blow-up on the sideline, but blow-up weeks where he goes for 160 and a couple touchdowns. Still think that's capable, but definitely not the best start to go off of for Tyreek Hill in week 1. Okay. That's all I want to talk about my team because, jeez, that was hard to watch. And our last matchup, which was one of our lowest scoring matchups of the week, and that would be the Vicksburg Kinks going to 1-0, 95.22, to the Timonium Neon Tubes, 88.14. Starting with Tom's squad, Jane Daniels scores 20 points, 19 for 30, 233 yards, a touchdown. Also carries the ball for 11 times, 68 yards. Saquon Barkley has 18 carries, 60, and a touchdown. Probably his floor. I mean, just in terms of the yardage, I think that's kind of where his floor kind of lies, especially in this Eagles offense. Chase Brown, 21 carries, which you love to see. Not very efficient, 43, but it does score a touchdown. Some involvement in the passing game. McMillan, 5 for 9, 68 yards, 9.3 points. Cortland Sutton, 6 for 9, 61 and a touchdown. Matthew Golden, who is now dealing with an injury, upgraded to full activity. So he may be available for week 2. 2 for 2, 16. TJ Hawkinson. Went for 3 for 4, 15 yards for 3 points. Bigsby, who is now on the Philadelphia Eagles, 5 carries, 12 yards. Aubrey has 11, and the Eagles have 4 points. Looking on the bench, a couple of interesting things. You have Penix here as well. Nice little backup just in case, Jane Daniels does get hurt. I don't think that he's vying for the starting job on this team, but just something interesting to keep in mind. 42 attempts in his first action, really, of 2025, so love to see that. And Crosby Merritt, 10 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Very, very interesting player. Had a lot of hype coming out of the draft in terms of fantasy football, and really takes his opportunities with a huge clip, 10 carries, 82 yards. Looking at the roster, you have Saquon Barkley, Chase Brown. The obvious pick is just to throw him in the flex spot next week against the Green Bay Packers, which is not a plus matchup, but I think you have to do that. My concern player, who is the concern here? I would say the concern probably is TJ Hawkinson. There was a lot of hype about him in the all season with JJ McCarthy, kind of being that safety valve in that Vikings offense. Only gets 4 targets in this contest, which was very close. JJ McCarthy kind of struggled at the beginning, kind of got rolling as the game went on, but only 4 targets, 3 catches, 15 yards. Now tight end 35 on the season after 1 week. Again, a lot of playmakers on this team, even without Jordan Addison playing in this one. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Jalen Naylor. Also, you have Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. Is TJ Hockenson the odd man out?
Man, I really like Hawkinson, so I hope not. I don't think so. I think um, his role in that offense historically, even with these very similar playmakers to the team here, uh, has been pretty rock solid. He still played 80% of the snaps. I think it was a weird game. They were big time in comeback mode. Jefferson scored the touchdown. It was kind of a low offensive output game for the Vikings. I think they maybe got thrown off of their game plan a little bit and maybe had to adjust at halftime. I think it was like 17-6 at halftime. I think if they maybe probably schemed that game up to use him more, but were thrown off and had to do some changes on the fly, if
Yeah.
you will, in this game against the Bears. The Bears really had him kind of by the throat for a while there during that game.
Yeah, I do agree that it's better days ahead for TJ Hockenson. Just way too talented of a player for them not to use him. Um, I could see him more, maybe the yards, maybe not so much, but in the red zone, I could see them using him quite a bit. The short yardage kind of situations. So maybe touchdown or bust, but should be more fantasy points in the future for TJ Hockenson.
Yeah, let me ask you about a couple other players here, Adam, that I'm
Okay.
curious about. Obviously, gives the start to Tank Bigsby. That was a mistake. He's now with another team, but is not expected to be a fantasy starter. He's probably droppable, probably in a 12-team league. I don't know.
Well, I will
Uh,
say this before you even go. Tom does have Saquon,
does have Barkley. That is true.
so
Yeah.
that's a good
Okay.
handcuff right there, just to kind of keep him on the roster.
Yeah. The problem is, I mean, maybe Ray Davis is probably a free agent after tonight.
Yeah.
Um, you got Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, otherwise known as Bill. I'm curious if they'll change it on the app. I don't know. He does prefer to go by Bill, is what I hear. So interesting there. Has a nice game. The snaps for the Commanders were pretty divvied up amongst their running backs.
Yeah.
Austin Eckler played 47% of the snaps. Krosky Merritt played 33%, and Jeremy McNichols still played 19%. Chris Rodriguez, who a lot of people thought would be a contender for snaps, was inactive for this game, which was a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people. So I'm a little bit concerned there, and the reason I am, even though you slide Krosky Merritt into the running back position there, the flex spot, can you feel confident rolling Matt Golden out there? Matthew Golden with the Packers, a guy that I think both of us pretty much liked a lot, liked the pick during the draft, talked about him in the recap show, but just 2 for 2 for 16 yards. Is there anyone else on this team that you feel like you can slide in there, or are you just stuck either playing the waiver wire free agency or throwing Golden out there for a second time in a row?
Well, I mean, based on the current roster construction, you got to throw Golden out there again. You're hoping he's more involved. I don't know when he went out of this game, but yeah, you gotta keep him in. There's no better options now. Free agency is another story, but as of right now, you got to keep him in there. There's really no one else that you can really slide in there that has more upside than Matthew Golden.
It's a little bit of the risk you take, taking a lot of shots at these young players that don't have like very defined roles at the beginning of the season. Like Isaac Tesla, love him, great prospect. In a crowded offense, he scored on one target
Yeah.
in this one. You can't start him. Iomanor, 2 for 7. You like the 7 targets, but man, Titans offense doesn't look very great.
No.
So, 12 points against the Broncos, tough defense. Maybe there's a flash, but you can't start him until he, catches a few balls. So I don't know. It just seems like that's the risk you take drafting a lot of young players, tons of potential. But if you have holes in your roster, your starting lineup early in the season, you might be forced to start some guys that you don't want to start.
Yeah, and let's go over to the the high point player here, and I'm gonna go with Cortland Sutton. I feel like he's always kind of just like forgot about in these middle rounds, in terms of drafting, where maybe he should be a little higher. But 9 targets, 6 attempts, 61 yards, and a touchdown. 95% snap count. Him and Bo Nix have rapport. He's really the main focus in that passing attack in Denver, and good things to see, especially out of the gate. He is the go-to guy when Bo Nix is going to pass the ball.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like he is so good, and I do feel like we undervalue him. I don't know if it's like a fantasy consensus that's out there in the ether, but at least when I think of some, I cannot get his 2022 out of my head.
Yeah,
He had a really awful 2022 where he was very rarely in the top 24 in receivers. He scored 2 touchdowns that season despite playing in every game but two. I can't get that season out of my head. And then I look at his 2023 and his 2024, and I'm like, how why isn't there recency bias here? Like,
right.
why am I not respecting what he's done the last 2 seasons? But certainly, you know, I probably a value in this draft.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely a value. Number one guy there, and will be used heavily throughout the season. So let's go over to our last team, and that would be Brian going 0-1. Timonium Neon Tubes 88.14. Bo Nix had a struggle fest of a game. 40 attempts, but only 176 yards and a touchdown. 2 interceptions and a fumbled loss. Turning the ball over way too much, even still in a win. Bucky Irving has kind of a quiet day, but kind of salvages it with a receiving touchdown, 14 carries, 37 yards. Touchdown receiving, as I mentioned. Isaiah Pacheco, 5 carries, 25 yards. Nothing much doing against that front seven of LA. Justin Jefferson in his first action with JJ McCarthy, 4 for 7, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Evans, kind of a quiet day, 5 for 8, 51 yards. Roma Dunze, 6 for 9, 37, but does score a touchdown. Trey McBride, 6 for 9, 61 yards. Target monster in Arizona. Austin Eckler, 6 for 26, does get involvement in the passing game, 3 for 3, 31. Loop has 13, and the Steelers defense has 2. Nothing really much to talk about on the bench. Too much. Not really at all, really. Everyone had low usage or no usage really at all on his bench. But I kind of wanted to talk about Isaiah Pacheco as our kind of worrisome starter for Brian. 51% snaps, only 5 carries for 25. Did have a 5 yards per carry clip, but no usage whatsoever. Could have been game script. I'm looking at Kareem Hunt's usage as well. Only 5 attempts for Kareem Hunt. Looking at some others, nothing really doing there. Just that running attack for Kansas City, nothing doing. And they asked Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball. He was able to do that, even in the loss. But kind of scary, I would say. Are they going to lean more on Patrick Mahomes? Are they going to go away from the running back situation? Are all these kind of running backs on the roster going to get an opportunity to display their talents? Isaiah Pacheco, very, very quiet in week one.
He was surprisingly so. This was a guy that I liked. I think I talked about him in the draft recap show, but 5 carries, really 51% of the snaps. Like, not how you were hoping he would start the year. Just kind of taking a look at his the end of his last season. I mean, I guess frankly we shouldn't be too surprised. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of last year when he returned from injury, he was consistently, basically in the 30s and 40s in terms of snap percentage. So maybe we should not have been really expecting him to come out and have 80% of snaps or 70%
Yeah.
of snaps in the first week. So we'll see if that improves. For Brian's sake, I hope it does. But yeah, that's something to be concerned about after just a single week.
Yeah, and I mean, you have Philly next week, who is not an easy team to run against. I know Javonte Williams did have 2 touchdowns, but not very efficient on those 2 touchdowns. But again, looking at the bench, you don't have any other better options here in terms of maybe throwing him in the flex and subbing someone out for him. You're not. I mean, you're kind of concerned also about Austin Eckler as well. With Crosby Merrick really, taking the reins there in Washington. So definitely some concerns here. He's going to need Bucky Irving to really step it up. Justin Jefferson to have a big game next week, because there are concerns here in terms of the running back depth and position.
I mean, I also want to ask you about the quarterback position here.
Okay.
Bo Nix,
Yeah.
yikes. 25 for 40, threw 2 interceptions, lost a fumble, like 8 carries for 18 yards, like, against Tennessee.
Yeah.
This was a home opener for Denver. Not pretty, and the only guy on the bench backing him up right now is Cam Ward, who, if there was a guy
Was
that
even
had
worse.
probably been Bo Nix, it might have been Cam Ward.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to ride with him just based on the, potential of his fantasy production and where you drafted him. The turnovers have to be cleaned up. He didn't turn the ball over too much last year, so I think this might just be kind of a weird week one jitters. I expect better things from Bo Nix. He's too talented of a player to be this bad. But, if the turnovers continue, that can definitely lower his fantasy ceiling going forward. But let's talk about the positives, because there are positives here. Let's go with Rome Odunze. With Ben Johnson, now the head coach of the Chicago Bears, 94% snap count, 9 targets. Doesn't really do too much with him, but does get in the end zone. I think this is more of, not who the number one wide receiver is. It could be Rome Odunze one week and DJ Moore the next week, with Caleb Williams expected to play even better as the season goes on.
Yeah, certainly signs of hope for Odunze there. Had 9 receptions. He only hit that mark twice. I'm sorry, 3 times last year, but not since week 12. So definitely a really solid start to the year for Odunze. If Caleb Williams can turn Odunze into his number one receiver, which is definitely possible, it seems like it could be probable, in fact, then Odunze could be in for a very nice year. So I'm definitely on the same boat with you on Odunze.
Yeah, I mean, you want to see those yards go up, but again, with the 9 targets, he's looking for them. Maybe the efficiency wasn't there, but you would hope to see, especially in Detroit, could be a high-scoring game where they have to come from behind. Definitely expect his usage to go up in terms of targets and receptions in week 2.
One other positive I wanted to spotlight here is Bucky
Okay.
Irving. You mentioned that
Yeah.
his point total wasn't crazy impressive. He had a little bit of a down week compared to what we're used to for Bucky Irving, but 76% snap percentage is
Yeah.
higher than any game last year.
Yep.
He was consistently like 40s and 50s later in the year. He was 30s earlier in the year last year. So the fact that he is already up to 76% to begin the year shows that he is going to be on the field more. And with a guy like that, put him on the field, because, man, that guy is a threat to do anything at any time.
Yeah, I think the Rashad White experiment between him and Bucky Irving is over. I think this is Bucky Irving's job, which is exactly why Brian drafted him, I believe, in the 2nd round. So, this could be the floor. I mean, to be completely honest, this could be what his floor looks like week in and week out.
100%.
Okay. So
100%.
that is our week 1 recap for you guys. Very interesting week. I would say that a lot of the offenses struggled. Not as much fantasy points as we're accustomed to seeing. Hopefully we see more fantasy points in week 2. But that is our show, everyone, and we hope you all enjoyed it. Remember to like the podcast on YouTube to see if Pat has to do a punishment for this week. We want to see a majority of owners vote for that. But until next week, we will see you then for week 2. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you for listening and your support. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify.